I don't have a good explanation as to why this movie works as well as it does.
And my favorite thing, released in Japan, the title of this movie was Captain's Supermarket. This is one of the rare instances where the director's cut is actually shorter than the theatrical version because they took so much out of it.
Our latest podcast instantly has me remembering Schoolhouse Rock. I would say I don't know why, but I do know why. Remember that 3, 6, 9,
oh, yeah.
12, 15, 18. It was a lesson about the number 3, and that's what we're talking about. Welcome. This is the Fright Club podcast, and she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
We're from madwolf.com, and yeah, we're talking about threequels.
That's
you
right.
trademark that term? Get the lawyers on the phone. Threequels, the best third installments of a horror franchise. And just before we started recording this, we put the word out on the interwebs, asking people what their favorite ones. So before we're done, we'll check back and see what some of the best answers are. I'm going to guess there are probably some, that we have, but maybe not. We always get surprised.
Oh, there are so many franchises.
Looking at you, Seth.
There are so many franchises
I know.
I expect there to be a lot that we're not didn't make our top.
Yeah.
Fuzzy math, by the way.
But it is fuzzy math. There's good reason for that, and we'll get to that. Well, this is not a live event, so we're free.
That's right.
We're free. The boundaries, the chains are off. I'm sorry about that. But, we can do fuzzy math for a good reason. But first off, we want to say about an exciting partnership. We want to give credit to an exciting partnership that I think we did announce, though, last time, didn't we?
We did. We announced it at Fright Club Live last time, but we're going to tell you every time because it's very exciting. We are partnering with Ginger Nuts of Horror, which is just this great website it's based in England, but you can get it anywhere thanks to the connecting tubes of the interwebs. and
we sound older and older every time we say that.
It's at gnofhorror.com, and what they do is it's a website that just is dedicated to celebrating horror, and they get they get horror movie reviews, they post book reviews, which I find incredibly helpful because so many horror books come out every year, and I'm always looking for the next one, and I'm always looking for reviews of it, so they're great about that. They have a lot of articles that are about horror. They also have a lot of articles that are first person written by some horror authors. It's a great site that, like I say, just celebrates a love of horror. So you should absolutely be checking them out.
And I would be remiss if we didn't plug your horror book, Roost. Been out for a couple of years now. Check it out.
Do it.
That is very cool. Thank you to Jim and Ginger Nuts of Horror. And I got to say, since we've started this whole Fright Club thing, really the movie review thing, we've got a lot of good people that follow us in England.
Oh, yeah, tons.
And we got to get over there.
We do.
We have never been across the pond.
No, well, we're going
to do that.
We're going to Ireland in not too distant day future.
Next year?
Yes.
Or so?
And so, we could always plan to first go to England, to London, and then go over to Ireland.
We swing over. It's
That's
Czechoslovakia.
That's
we
right.
just swing by.
That's right.
All right. We're quoting.
Zip in, zip
out.
out.
Zip out. That's what it was. We're quoting Stripes. We got to move on. Okay. So, we've got a bunch. We've got fuzzy math, and we've got a bunch when we're talking about threequels that were solid options that didn't quite make it.
Right. So, and these are going to, I'm just going to start at the top, the one that's going to upset the most people. I'm looking at you, Brandon. Halloween 3. It didn't make the list. It did not.
Is that the Season of the Witch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't care for that one.
You know what? I've said this before. I talk about getting hate. I am just not a slasher guy.
True.
I'm really not.
Yeah.
I like usually the first installments, like the original Halloween, I'm fine. The original Nightmare on Elm Street, fine. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, they're basically a waste of my time, and I'm sorry.
Which I should also point out, so Dream Warriors did not make the final list either, nor did Scream 3, Final Destination 3, Paranormal Activity 3. For a lot of people, Paranormal Activity 3, that's a lot of people's favorite one. That's one where they go back to the 80s.
I did like that one.
Yeah, well, you like all. I mean, we like most of those.
I like most of that franchise.
Most of those.
Yeah, I do.
And I feel like The Omen 3, Final Conflict, it's not a great movie, but Sam Neill, you can't go wrong with Sam Neill.
Yeah, you get some bonus points for Sam Neill.
And then also Return of the Living Dead 3, that's a really popular one because of the super hot zombie woman, but also it's a little fuzzy because sort of Return of the Living Dead is a sequel to Night of the Living Dead, sort of. So anyway, is it a fourth? Is it a third? It's hard to say. Whatever it was, it didn't quite make the list. Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Now, I don't think anybody's going to argue that that's a great movie, but it does boast Viggo Mortensen, and I'm not sure what else you need in a horror film. Fear Street Part 3, 1666.
Like
that was
series.
a good one. Yeah.
There's a new one coming soon, isn't there? I think there's a new one coming soon.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I liked Purge. The third Purge is Election Year.
Yeah,
I liked that one.
Yep, I did too.
I liked Psycho 3. I like all the Psycho movies. I don't hate them. Well, that's another one is that Red Dragon, I'm not sure how many people think of that. It's
Right.
a weird idea of where does the franchise begin and end, but Red Dragon is a very solid horror movie.
It is solid.
But it didn't make it either.
Okay. That's a big group there. Big group. And of course, you're always going to have the big slasher franchises because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
But there's a couple here that we're just getting the third installments not only this year, but this week.
Yes.
And that's what will kick us off there. Are we ready to get rolling?
Indeed.
Because we just saw this, as probably a lot of you did, just in the last couple of days. It just came out this week. At number 6 in our fuzzy math is the third installment of A Quiet Place, Day 1.
What do we do? Save everyone we can.
I have a plan.
This is so new. We wanted to put it, at the end because recency bias and all
Right.
that. We can assess it maybe more against the historical basis later. But we both liked it.
Oh, yes, very much. I
Very
thought it
much.
was, and we had, I'm not going to say we had low expectations, but we were a little anxious about it, because they just made so many dramatic changes to the setting. It's not, we leave that family.
It was time.
It was time. And the other thing is that if you have Lupita Nyong'o leading up your, anything movie, you're in good hands.
Yep.
And it's not just her. Alex Wolff is great in this movie.
He is.
He just, I'm not even going to say. That's the other thing is we're going to really limit what we say because it's so brand new.
So
a lot of
brand
people
new,
haven't seen it, but it's a very solid, scary movie. It's the kind of scary movie. One of the things they do well that they did well in the first two is you care so deeply for these characters that you're on the edge of your seat hoping nothing happens to them. And they ramp it up this time with a cat, George. Not just any cat, a really good actor cat. Also,
Really good actor.
a tuxedo cat, which is what our cat is.
That Barney Rubble
Velma.
is a good actor.
And Velma would not last a day.
No, too chatty.
No, she just, she's, and the other thing is that even when she tries to be stealthy and jump onto our hardwood floor, it goes,
Because she weighs like 50 pounds.
She does, so she would not make
No.
it. So I was concerned for Frodo the whole time.
But this cat performance is quite good.
It is.
And also, it probably, this sounds weird, but it would probably come in, if we were ranking the 3 Quiet Places, it would be third, but that's not a knock. The first 2 are so good, we think.
Yeah.
I know they're polarizing.
Yes, they are.
Don't start on me, people. And I'm looking at you, Timothy. We've already settled a date and time to hash this out. Our good friend, and there's nothing but love.
And a great filmmaker.
Timothy Troy, he has issues, as a lot of people
do,
with The Quiet Place, especially the first one.
Mm-hmm.
We don't.
No.
We think it's anyway. So we're gonna hash it out at Nightmares Film Festival
Over some
this
beers.
October. Maybe we'll sell tickets. Maybe we'll see if we can get an auditorium and invite everybody in, and we'll talk about The Quiet Places. But anyway, we like the whole franchise. This would probably be third of the 3, but it's still we really like, and it's short. It's like an hour and a half.
Yeah, it is.
You're in, you're out.
Get a lot of monsters.
A lot of monsters.
A lot of monsters, a lot of bloodshed, a lot of carnage.
Yeah.
And the only character who, overlaps the other films is Jimon Hunsu.
Right.
He plays the character that he plays in the second episode. You get to meet him in this episode. And he's not on screen a lot. Obviously, not a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
He really does a great job.
And it gives you a natural bridge to maybe another one.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Go see it. Quiet Place Part 3, Quiet Place Day 1 is the actual title. So that is number 6 in our top 5 of our favorite threequels. So let's move up to the actual top 5, and this one is from 2019. While babysitting the daughter of Ed and Lorraine Warren, a teenager and her friend unknowingly awaken an evil spirit trapped in a doll. It's Annabelle Comes Home.
What did you do? I let her out. Who? Annabelle. I'm sorry. What else did you touch? Everything.
Can I play with Annabelle? I think you have the wrong house. There's no Annabelle here.
Yes, she is. I sometimes see things. Like how my mom sees things.
The doll, it's a beacon for other spirits.
This is one of the super rare occasions where the third film in the franchise is the best film in the franchise.
Yes. This one, we have to say, we did have low expectations coming in.
Yes, we did.
Low expectations. And they were blown away because this was fun.
It was
It
super
turned it into sort of a haunted house thing going on.
Oh, for sure.
And there were a lot of cool, cool twists and, some not really, I don't like the fake out so much.
No.
But they were inventive.
They were inventive.
And when the friend, you wanted to smack her in the face.
Oh, yeah.
And then you found out you understood why she was doing what she was doing.
Yeah,
and
Daniela, Katie Saruf.
Yeah, she was very good.
She was very good. And this is another one where, it's hard to, is this really, so it's a standalone Annabelle franchise. Obviously, Annabelle was originally in The Conjuring, and she pops up in a lot of the other Conjuring universe films, but just the standalone Annabelle franchise. This is the third episode, and it's PG-13, another reason that we had low expectations.
Yeah.
However, that darling dear McKenna Grace, how we love her.
McKenna Grace, she's in this, and she's charming as always. And it was so cool because when the first of the new Ghostbusters was coming out that she was a part of, we got to interview her. And she still to this day, and over the years in radio, I've got to interview a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And she is in my top 5 interviews of all time. She was fantastic. We had a ball talking to her.
She was so
funny.
funny.
And we got to ask her, of course, we were talking to her a lot then about Ghostbusters, but we did tell her how much we enjoyed her horror movies. And we got to ask her if there were any, or you asked her specifically, if there were any of her movies that she was not allowed to watch.
No, because I, too, am a big horror movie fan.
Yay.
So since I was super little, that's always been my favorite to watch is horror movies, because that's like my dad and I's thing. We love horror films. And so I always love watching my horror films after they come out. It's so fun.
Yeah, so we knew she was good people. She
That's
loves the horror.
right.
In fact, her whole family does. So that's why. That's why she's so good. So yeah, this was a really nice addition to the franchise. Sort of turned it on its ear a little bit because, like I said, it did feel a bit like a haunted house thing.
Yeah. So Gary Dauberman directed this one, and he wrote it with James Wan. He had written. He's going to direct the forthcoming Salem's Lot if that ever actually comes out.
Yeah.
But he wrote, the most recent It and all of the previous Annabelle films and the Nun films. So again, I didn't have a ton of hope. Although James Wan co-writes, that's a good sign. But still, I don't have a good explanation as to why this movie works as well as it does.
Yeah.
But it's just got like a fun house kind of feel about it.
It does. And of course, it also calls to the fact that most people, fans of this series, probably know the real Annabelle was a Raggedy Ann doll.
Right.
Not really fearsome looking.
No.
So it's nice that they switched it to the fact that people are terrified of that doll. And we found out, of course, when we got a chance to take one of them home.
That's right.
And people were like, you did not even let that doll stay in your house. I'm like, oh, yes.
And
Oh, yes,
she's
we
heavy.
did.
Yeah, we did. Thanks to our friend Cicely from the Owens Group, we got to keep one of the real Annabelles from the film.
And it was so funny when we told people we were doing that.
Oh,
They
yeah.
were scared for us.
My sisters in particular. Yeah, they were really.
I know.
They were
They just
really
sat there.
No.
Sat there on the table all night. No
yeah,
problems.
she was very polite.
But yeah, you're right. Heavy. So that was fun. And yeah, this is the 7th. Did you say that? The 7th in the entire Conjuring universe at the time it came out.
I did not say that.
Yeah, but 3rd in the Annabelle film series. And yeah, just really, I suppose it did. Maybe we liked it a tad better because we weren't expecting. That works that way sometimes.
But it just, you know
was
what?
Fun.
It was fun. It was funny. You got the kid, the boyfriend on the front lawn being chased around by werewolves.
I love that.
It was fun. It was a fun, it was like a carnival ride, sort of. I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, very much enjoyed it. That is Annabelle Comes Home, 3rd in that series, and that's from 2019. Our number 5 of Threequels in horror. So let's move it up to number 4. Ooh, this one goes back a ways, a classic. Returning to the ancestral castle long after the death of the monster, the son of Dr. Frankenstein meets a mad shepherd who is hiding the comatose creature. To clear the family name, he revives the creature and tries to rehabilitate him in Son of Frankenstein.
Every fantastic story told of him by the people of Frankenstein, I now believe to be absolutely true. I, as a man, should destroy him. But as a scientist, I should do everything in my power to bring him back to conscious life, so that the world can study his abnormal functions. That would vindicate my father, and his name would be enshrined among the immortals. Benson, turn on the generator.
Yeah, this is classic. And one of the first things that jumps out to me about this movie is Bela Lugosi's makeup. I don't think I've ever seen him look like that.
Oh, no.
In a movie.
Oh, no, definitely not.
He's almost unrecognizable, really.
Yeah, and he has fun in this movie. It's a fun character. It's just to see him and Boris Karloff in the same movie together, that's super fun. Of course, he plays Igor, if you're not aware of that. And it's a really fun twist on the Igor character. And then it was 1939, so Basil Rathbone. He was a giant superstar.
Yes, he was.
And he plays Frankenstein's son,
Well, he
Baron Wolf von Frankenstein.
That's a great name. Yeah, Basil Rathbone played Sherlock Holmes for years.
Oh, yeah.
So he might have gotten top billing in this movie, I think. If you're looking at the trailer,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
he did.
I think he did. And it's a big part, unlike in the other Frankenstein films where the doctor doesn't have such a big role, but he's got a big role in this. And it's got some funny moments, and it's got some tender moments, and it's very unlike. I mean, you miss James Whale, you just do.
Oh,
I mean,
sure,
as a director, James Whale had panache to spare, and he took some risks. Starting with in the original, throwing the little girl into the lake, right? I mean, he took some real risks, and this one is a lot more of just sort of right from the start, to rehabilitate his family name, he brings the monster back to life. That's fucking stupid. You what? And then you leave him alone with this sadistic little creature, Igor, and that's what's the most fun. If you haven't seen it, I mean, it's funny to think that I'm worried about spoiling a movie from 1939, but if you haven't seen it, it's the relationship between Igor and the Frankenstein monster that is the most interesting thing about this movie.
Mm-hmm. I think it was the first time, too, that hunchback creature of Igor was introduced into these monster films. Also, it is the longest, 99 minutes. It's the longest English language film in the classic Universal horror series.
Interesting.
The Spanish language version of Dracula was a little bit longer, but for English language, this is longer. Also, it's one that after the monster learned to speak, he's mute again in this movie, which, all right.
Well, he loses power. And he's just
got to be rebooted.
He's got to be rebooted. So maybe it just didn't.
All right.
It didn't reboot properly.
I'll go there, and it marks the last time that Boris Karloff would play the monster, at least in a feature film. In August of 1940, he appeared as the monster in a celebrity baseball game.
Shut up.
Apparently so.
Wow.
But this was the last time in a feature film, and the mixture of anytime you hear that a film has Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, okay, but his makeup, Lugosi's makeup is like, it almost surprised me in a way. I guess I don't have any reason to think this, that he took the role. I mean, there's always that legend about those two fighting for star power and everything, and he was so buried under the costumes and the makeup and that hair, and he just looked unrecognizable.
Maybe that itself was part of because of course, obviously, Karloff was quite buried under all of that makeup, and maybe Lugosi wanted something a little bit, but he was also playing a homeless guy, so he's going to have to be hairy and disgusting.
Yeah.
I think my favorite still, and this will surprise no one, including you, my favorite pairing of those two is still The Black Cat, which is just such a weird, excellent film.
It really is.
But this is a great one.
It is a great one, and it's one that got recycled, at least the score for this film got recycled years and years later. The score has a bunch of slightly off-key horns and plucked strings, and it was recycled by Universal Horror Films throughout the 1940s. They just kept going back to it, and it's really atmospheric.
Yeah, it is.
One of the cool things about Son of Frankenstein, that is 1939, number 4 on our list of threequels. Okay, before we get to the top 3, we mentioned 2 threequels coming out this week. One we already talked about, A Quiet Place Day 1, but Maxine is going to be 3rd in that Ty West series, and we see that here just in a couple days, so we couldn't wait to record.
No, we could not wait to record, so we may have an addendum. I assume we will.
Yeah.
I assume we will that's going to be, because the first 2, are such amazing films. Just amazing films.
The early word I'm seeing is positive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you can just see, I mean, you know, he made the first two back-to-back with not very much money, and just, you don't really need more than Mia Goth, honestly, to make those two films work. But then, you know, it's like they came out, and it appears to me the whole world was like, please let me be in your next movie, because this cast is nuts. And I can't be more excited than I am to see Maxine, but we won't see it for another couple days, so I couldn't make this list.
Should we get it? I'm already seeing some comments about we put out
for sure.
We put out about what were your favorite threequels. Monty says Friday the 13th Part 3 when Jason gets the iconic mask.
That's
okay.
Yeah, it's a good
All right,
one.
We talked about that. David, House from Obstacle Corps. He says Dream Warriors.
Okay, we just mentioned that. Now I want to take a step back though and say that the third installment in Friday the 13th is a really fun movie.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because of the mask, but because it was made in 3D, as so many of those bad 80s third installments were. I mean, everything, Amityville 3D, everything was in 3D that year. And I really do like the third Friday the 13th a great deal, but not quite as much as the movies on here.
Got a couple comments of movies that did make the list. We're going to talk about here in a minute, so I'll hold those. But then Melissa Dina has a good one. We may not have thought about this one. Sympathy for Lady Vengeance.
Oh yeah.
She says she knows technically it's not a horror film, but that's a great series. Sympathy for Lady Vengeance.
Oh my God. Yes, it's a great. But yeah, I just barely see. Yeah, I can't say that I think of them as horror movies, although they are masterpieces, all three of them.
That's a good one. So we'll move up to number 3, and this one actually was mentioned by Brandon. He mentioned a few threequels in commenting to our post, but this was on his list, and it's certainly on ours as well. This is number 3 from 1985. As the world is overrun by zombies, a group of scientists and military personnel sheltering in an underground bunker in Florida must decide on how they should deal with the undead horde. Day of the Dead.
What the fuck is wrong with you people? They're dead! They're fucking dead, and you want to teach them tricks?
They have to be rewarded, Captain. Why else will they do what we want them to do?
I don't want them to do anything but Drapo! Those are my men in there! That's it. Run, you fucking lunatics.
George A. Romero's Day of the Dead, the most eagerly awaited day in horror film history.
Well, here's the first thing that I love about this movie. The first scene, the abandoned city of the movie, was filmed in Fort Myers and Sanibel Island, Florida. And the theater in the opening is the Edison Theater. I used to see so many movies at the Edison Theater. You may have heard me say this before if you're a longtime Fright Clubber. I went to junior high school in Fort Myers, Florida, and used to go down there all the time, had a lot of family down there. My grandparents used to go down there for years. And Hope and I got married.
That's right.
On Sanibel Island.
I can't believe that wasn't the lead. I went to middle school. Nobody cares where you went to middle school, George.
Is that how I sound? Wow. I understand why I've been in radio for 40 years. That's great. So Day of the Dead, 1985. It's the only movie in Romero's Dead series where a zombie has a line of dialogue. That's the point of distinction.
Yeah, and it's, it's a great movie. It is a great movie, and I think it's the first one where you recognize that, well, I think he's not shy about the fact that when it comes down to it, Romero was siding with the zombies. He was on Team Zombie, and in this one in particular, because we do have Bub, who's such a great character, and the only likable character in the entire film that I think it was the most, that's the most, when you're watching the movie and, all hell's going to break loose. You're waiting the whole time and it's very enclosed, so much of it. And when you are outside, you think, oh, you're going to take a breath. But even the outside, it's so isolated, it's equally claustrophobic. The way it's shot is really smart. But the other thing is that the whole time you're waiting for something terrible to happen. And the only character you're concerned about is Bub.
Bub.
He's the only one you give a shit. Who's going to make it out? Is Bub okay? Does he have battery life for those that Walkman? Because he'll be sad if he doesn't have some tunes.
This is actually the lowest grossing film in the Dead trilogy, but it, like many, has gained a big cult following over the last 3 decades, but didn't do that great when it first came out. But hey, neither did The Thing.
That's right.
And on the special DVD edition, Romero himself claimed that this is his favorite film of the original Dead trilogy.
Interesting. And I like most of the films in the Dead trilogy. I liked Land of the Dead. I liked, to a certain degree, Diary of the Dead. I liked a lot of the ones that he, toward the end of his life, he seemed like he had sort of re-embraced this franchise, probably because he couldn't get money to make anything else, but none of them are bad. They're all very well worth watching.
Yeah, and another tidbit here, the original budget back in 85 was $7 million, but that would be only if the film would have an R rating. And Romero was told that if he went ahead and shot an unrated film with no limits, then they would cut that budget in half to $3.5 million.
And it's an unrated film.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's also, which is a little bit funny because it's so hard to put yourself in the mind space. It doesn't strike me as being any more violent than certainly Dawn of the Dead. His Dawn of the Dead. No,
at all.
It is a little long. It's a little long, but it's got some of the, the arms coming out of the walls, which is very repulsion. Mm-hmm. It's just got some really iconic moments.
And the zombies moaning, groaning, and feasting sounds happen to be played by the same voice actor that did the voice of that little dude, the little friend of Jabba the Hutt that sits there and that guy. They were not all done by sound effects. His name is Mark Dodson.
Okay.
Did a lot of those voices. So that's a little bit of trivia as well. So number 3, and a favorite, judging by the comments that we're getting right now on social media for a lot of Fright Clubbers, and that is 1985's Day of the Dead. All right, moving up to number 2. This is from 1992, and this gets a big vote from Melissa Dina on the Fright Club podcast Facebook group. By the way,
that's right.
By the way, join it. Just put a request in there to join the fun. This is from, as I said, 92. When Ash Williams is accidentally transported to 1300 AD, he must retrieve the Necronomicon and battle an army of the dead in order to return home. Army of Darkness.
In an age of darkness.
May God have mercy upon your souls. Something's wrong. Something's amiss.
And a time of evil.
You shall die!
When the world needed a hero.
The swallow our souls. I don't want to die!
What it got was him.
Groovy. You know your shoelace is untied.
He's a 20th century guy.
For that arrogance, I shall see you dead.
Trapped in the Middle Ages.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. This is my boomstick.
Now, let's talk about how I get back home.
Army of Darkness.
Surprise!
Yes, you knew it was going to be in there. And my favorite thing, released in Japan, the title of this movie was Captain's Supermarket. Man, I wish I'd have known that. We've interviewed Bruce Campbell now 2 or 3 times.
Yes.
Next time we do, I'm going to say, well, hello, Captain Supermarket. And he will say, click, goodbye. And that will be the end of that interview.
My favorite thing, I've got many favorite things about this movie, and my top number 1 favorite thing about this movie is, when did Ash get so hot? He came out in this movie, he's like, damn, there's no unibrow. He's got biceps. He's got pecs ahoy. What is going on?
For the ladies.
You ain't lying, man. It's so funny. It's such a funny movie, And then my favorite GIF,
or GIF.
Just, look up Angry Dooting. And it's the Army of the Dead. And it's the Deadite army, and they're just moving, and the one's got a little flute, and he's angrily dooting, and it's my favorite thing ever.
Angry dooting. You can see in this movie an issue of the magazine Fangoria. It's in the car's trunk, and that was Sam Raimi showing his gratitude for the publication, including covering the original Evil Dead. So there's lots of those things you can spot.
Oh, well,
it's
sure.
a lot of fun.
Oh, it's super fun.
Yeah, and this is one you can tell they were acknowledging the fandom, and I think that's part of maybe Bruce Campbell's transformation. I mean, they were involved in a cult favorite here that had some very, very loyal fans.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they were continuing that.
Oh yeah, and it's and it's funny because it's got like Bridget Fonda.
Yeah,
They've got flashbacks to
right.
the original two, which are basically the same movie. Of course, I mean it's such a weird franchise right there, and then it spun off that great TV show from a couple of years ago. That was super fun.
Yeah, because that was the I guess the result of not having the sequel big screen movie that they always sort of had planned, and that all fell through, and then it got the Ash versus Evil Dead TV series.
Which was fun. I love that show.
It was fun. And there were actually still, after that, I think there were ideas to follow it up with a proper Army of Darkness sequel movie, a crossover movie, but then they were all scrapped, and Ash versus Evil Dead was canceled after 3 seasons. And then I think, hasn't Bruce Campbell talked, he's sort of retired from the role now and doing other things? I don't know. You never know. You always kind of think it could come back at some time.
But I mean, it's taken off.
It has.
Evil Dead franchise, which it's a great franchise.
It is.
It's one of the rare franchises that took a sharp left turn and still deliver the goods.
And I think the last time we did talk to him, we talked about this. It was before this most recent.
Evil Dead Rise.
Evil Dead Rise came out, and he did seem comfortable with where his part in it now and where it's going.
Yeah,
now.
that he's a producer now and he has some creative say, but he's not a character.
Exactly. He's not Captain Supermarket any longer. But yeah, it is a lot of fun, and it's from 1992. Army of Darkness, number 2 on our list of Threequels. And you can probably guess what is at number 1, because we've talked about this many times, and it is getting a lot of votes right now looking at the comments from our post on social media. This is a police lieutenant uncovering more than he bargained for as he investigates a series of murders which have all the hallmarks of the deceased Gemini serial killer, and it leads him to question the patience of a psychotic ward in Exorcist 3.
You believe in possession, Father?
Come to take a little blood from you, Father.
Who are you? I am no one.
He is inside with us. He will never get away.
This time you're going to lose.
This is from 1990, and I believe back on the Fright Club podcast of Jump Scares, this was number 1.
Oh, of course it was.
Because it has an all-timer, and you know the one I mean.
Yep.
And in case you haven't seen it, it's the corridor in the hospital.
Yes.
And we'll leave it at that.
We will leave it at that.
It's a great one.
Oh yeah, it is. I think the all-time best jump scare. But there are so many great things about this movie. So that moment, and we talked about this before, there's a moment earlier in the film in a confessional which scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Just terrified me. And I think that, so William Peter Blatty, who of course wrote the novel, the original Exorcist novel, and he only directed one other thing before this called The Ninth Configuration. Tangent, if you haven't seen The Ninth Configuration, it's not really a horror movie. It's almost like an extended MASH episode, kind of, which reminds me of. Stacey Keach is in it. Really good. Look it up. Anyway, I would not have guessed that a novelist would have such an incredible eye for a horror film, because this movie is surreal and gorgeous. It uses architecture. It uses religious iconography. It uses the hospital setting. I mean, he uses the settings that he goes through so brilliantly in this movie to sort of take places where you should feel safe and make sure that you don't.
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing when you dive into the history and the trouble they had pleasing the studio, because it was supposed to be just based on Blatty's novel Legion. And they were not. They wanted it to be an exorcist, in the universe. Yeah. So we had to make a lot of concessions and bring in Father Karras back, bring in Jason Miller and all this. And it's amazing that it works as well as it does, because it has so much stuff shoved in there that wasn't supposed to be there at all. Now, you can find his original director's cut with none of that added stuff in there. You can find that if you want to. But it is amazing, because most of the time when you have so many cooks in the kitchen, as they say, studio people get involved, it just F's it up a lot of times. Yeah. But it is amazing how well it does work.
Yeah.
And this is one, I think, too, when it first came out, didn't get a lot of love.
Oh, it was a bomb. Yeah, it was a bomb. Which
but
is
even critically.
Yeah.
And I think people have warmed up to it as the years have gone on.
I think it's a weird franchise. For me, the fact that it's a serial killer makes it less scary than it's a demon. Like, demons are scarier than serial killers. And I prefer the cut that does have Father Karras in it. But I can also see where it feels a little shoehorned in. It feels a little like, is it a subplot? Is it a B story? I'm not sure what's going on here. But it takes a back seat to just how beautiful the macabre imagery is. And then also, that dream sequence, which I normally do not care for in a movie. And it's so wild, that dream sequence.
Yep.
Patrick Ewing as this big angel, Fabio.
C. Everett Koop,
yes!
former Surgeon General of the United States, probably only because Washington, D.C., Georgetown, Washington, D.C., he's in that movie.
But I feel like there are a couple reasons that the shoehorning in works, and part of it is this sort of surreal atmosphere that Blatty creates with scenes like that you don't expect, that you can't figure out why they're there. And then also, George C. Scott. I mean, wow.
Yeah, taken over, of course, for Lee J. Cobb, who had passed away.
Right.
And this is one of the rare instances where the director's cut is actually shorter than the theatrical version because they took so much out of it. But it's interesting to look at it when you look at it alongside Exorcist II, The Heretic, which I know. That movie follows a certain set of characters from The Exorcist and what happened to them, and this movie follows another set.
Yeah.
And so Part 3 didn't really acknowledge it, but didn't contradict it either to live in the same universe.
Right.
Yeah. But it's one that, as we've said, works extremely well, regardless of how much trouble they had putting it together and shoehorning in all that stuff. And even William Peter Blatty has said that the final exorcism scene, he said it's all right, but it's utterly unnecessary. But the studio insisted on it. And somehow it still comes together and still very effective and has those two you mentioned, the confessional scene, which, by the way, that's Teresa Wright, who was an Oscar winner in 1943 for Mrs. Miniver. Amazing.
It is amazing.
And I think she's uncredited. Much like in the first version of The Exorcist, Mercedes McCambridge did not, and then she fought to be credited, as well she should be.
Yes.
I don't think Teresa Wright got
She
credited.
made that movie.
Oh, my God.
The first was that waitress near Candlestick Park. I cut her throat and watched her bleed. She bled a great deal. It's a problem that I'm working on, Father. All this bleeding.
Yeah, that's Oscar winner Teresa Wright in The Confessional. They're
Scary.
Scary. And that is just a couple of reasons why it is number one on our list of best threequels in horror. But what do you think? We've already seen a bunch of comments on the post we made right before we started recording, but keep chiming in. What do you think? Did we miss some? And we talked about a bunch that almost made it, so probably some of those you think should be up there. But there's some we forgot about, like Sympathy for Lady Vengeance,
That's right.
if you call it a horror movie.
Right.
But
either way, it's a great movie.
It is a great movie, so there's lots to talk about there.
We never, usually we start off the show and we talk about the last episode. We neglected to do that today.
Oh, that's right.
And I want to point out, we showed Borgman.
Fright Club Live, the last Fright Club
Live.
Live at Gateway Film Center. Yeah, we talked about sleep paralysis and we showed Borgman. And I think I said ahead of time, I was very unsure about how people were going to take that movie, but they loved it.
They loved it.
They loved it.
And I was really, really happy about that.
I was too.
And it's because only brilliant, amazing humans come to Fright Club Live, and that's why they loved it. And I was really happy about that. And I just wanted to say, so one of our regular Fright Clubbers, his name is Michael Anthony Carroll, and he's an artist and an illustrator. And he gave me one of his books recently because the subtitle was Hope, and it was an anthology, and he had one piece in it, but it was great, and it was lovely for him to do that. And I realized we'd never really talked about his stuff before. Cute Ninjas is what he mainly does, and they're super, super fun.
They are.
So go to cuteninjabook.com and look up all of the stuff that Michael Anthony Carroll does.
Yeah, it is fun stuff. Thanks to Michael and everybody who we see at least once a month, at Gateway Film Center for Fright Club Live. And we hope to see everybody again. And if you're in the area of Columbus, Ohio, please come down. Gateway Film Center, right there, High Street. Part of the Ohio State University. We'll be back there on Friday, July 12th, and we're going to talk about the Shadow of War in horror movies.
And we're going to screen Under the Shadow, which is such a great movie. I'm so excited to see that. And we're also going to show the short film The Altruist, which is an all-time favorite of ours and a wild one.
And that is from filmmaker Matt Smith. So, yeah, we've started that. I've liked that. We've started the last few months to show a short film before the feature. And I think that's going over well too.
I think so, too.
Like to see
we
the
had,
short films.
we showed Loose Ends last time,
Yeah.
and we got some great comments about
did.
it after the show, so after the feature. So that's always fun.
Yeah, that's a fun one. So that is Friday, July 12th. That'll be the next Fright Club Live. In the meantime, what do you think about the Threequels? You can always let us know. You can find us, of course, I mentioned the Fright Club podcast group on Facebook. If you're not a member, we'd love to have you. Just send in a request there. And you can find us on Instagram at Fright Club Live and Fright Club Pod on Twitter. And then, of course, the main website where you can find all of our written reviews and our other podcast as well, the weekly podcast called the Screening Room Podcast. You can find that all on the main website at madwolf.com. So a lot of ways to keep in touch. We hope you will. Love to see your comments and seeing what we missed and what we got wrong. And maybe if you want to start the argument about A Quiet Place early, we can get into that. and well, at least by next time, we can talk about a little bit about what we thought about Maxine. Yeah, so can't wait to see that in a few days. So a lot of great stuff right now with the horror movies. And keep in touch. Be well. And until next time, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Hi, folks. I'm Bruce Campbell, hanging out here with Hope and George. Stay groovy.